inside Abode, ladies and gentlemen. How are y'all doing? I'm your host, Dave Jones. And before I get into my guest today, I want to invite you to subscribe to the podcast. It's free. We drop gems. Hopefully there's some entertaining things on there. And hopefully there's also some things that are helpful for you in the realm of buying and selling homes. But today we're not here for that. Today we are going to talk about Blackness. Today, this is the second episode of the 2024 Black History Month Reflection Series, and we're going to talk a little bit more. And we have a special guest again this year. I'm really excited about our guests, and I'm excited about the guests that we've had on this series. So if you have not listened to the Black History Month Reflection Series, take a look back. This is about the I think the third or fourth year I've done this, and so there's different Black leaders, community members from the Pacific Northwest and from all over that are highlighted in this series, and so it's super dope. And we're just talking about Black things and just be a fly on the wall and talk about and you're just listening to two Black people talk about Black stuff from a Black perspective. And so that's the goal, but it's also things that resonate across the board, but we're speaking on these things from a Black perspective, and hopefully it's a safe space for those conversations, and that's the goal of this. I'm going to get into my guest. I'm going to go ahead and get started. My guest is an Ohio native and is currently serving as the 11th president at Tacoma Community College, where I actually was an alum and I played basketball there. And that's my spot. So of course I got to rep that. Has a PhD from Florida State University. Has held different positions at Georgia Piedmont Technical College, Lone Star College, and other colleges, and Arundel Community College. You're about to correct me on that pronunciation, but also as an advocate, a published author, a number of scholarly articles and book chapters. Speaking on improving success and outcomes for Black and brown students and those from marginalized communities, and really focusing on that advocacy work. So really cool, and just a really dope person, and just funny, and all the things that you would want in your leader. And ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Dr. Ivan Harrell. Did I say your last name right?
Yes, you did.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome to the show, man. I appreciate you coming on.
No, it's good to be here, and you make me sound so good.
I mean, come on.
Have to have Dave Jones come do all the introductions.
I'm trying to do better. So honestly, being transparent, I got to be better, man. I'm trying to gas people up, like, because the people I have on the show, I feel like are hella special, and I really want people to understand, like, because it does take a lot to get to where where you're at right now, and where you're going, wherever that next thing is. And so, like, yeah, that takes a lot of work. Don't shortchange that. You've put in the time and the work and been successful. So,
well, thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah. So, how you doing?
I'm good. It's Saturday after a long week, and I guess it's really a long year thus far. I can't believe it. Just February, even though it'll be March next week. No, but overall, I'm good, and glad to have this opportunity with you. And as we talked a little bit earlier, this is my first podcast. I'm almost certain it's my first podcast. So I hope it goes well.
Oh, it's gonna be just fine. We finna get into it. We met through my wife Ann, and you guys were in a leadership group cohort together.
Yeah.
And I remember her talking just so much about, she was like, you got to meet Ivan because he's just such an impressive person, and just all the things. And so lived up to the billing, exceeded.
Well, thank you.
And the thing I like about you the most is you're fun, and you don't take yourself too seriously. And I think that is key to a leader, in my opinion. Someone who at least can understands, like, yeah, I know my role is this, but like, that's not, it don't make me act a different way or feel too aloof or anything like that. Not that I can't have fun. So that's what I noticed first about you, which is, I think, because we stay laughing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, and you're right, because the work is important, but yeah, we need to have some fun doing it. And who wants to be around someone who doesn't want to laugh and have some fun? So yeah, this is just who I am, and yeah,
I was
it's
gonna
it.
say, is that someone who you how you've always been? Just have you always been like
I,
just someone who laughs and jokes and stuff all the time?
yeah, yeah, I have been, and have lots of good friends who, I also think it keeps you grounded as well. As you
Mm-hmm.
said, you can get into these positions and be up here, and then you start to act this certain way, and that doesn't resonate with folks. So yeah, I have been. I've always liked to have fun, um, and wanted to keep that as I continue to kind of rise up in the ranks. And yeah, folks know I like to have fun at work. And it's important because sometimes you have these hard issues and things you need to deal with, and just a little fun can help it you to be able to deal with it a little easier.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like if you laugh more, at least as I get older, I know if I laugh more, I hope, I know it feels better, and I hope I'm gonna live longer. Like I don't know. I feel like if I can laugh a little more, because I'm typically a serious person, and Anne is the same way. Like,
Hmm.
so in my later years, I'm trying to be better about like, and not that I don't like to laugh and joke. I'm
Yeah,
joking all the time, but like
right.
just being more, just being more aware of the fact that like, because you know how, so especially as a black man, because I don't smile like in my head I'm smiling, but to
Hmm.
someone else they might feel like I'm
Hmm.
not approachable, or because I'm
Hmm.
not smiling on outwardly, but
Hmm.
inside I'm like, oh, I'm good. Like I was just laughing about something the other minute, but I'll step into a meeting or whatever and I won't. But like you don't realize I was just literally laughing about something on Twitter like as I was walking in the door, like,
Yeah,
so I'm
you're right.
not always I'm not that as serious as people think I am, I think. So I need to do a better job of conveying that.
Yeah, and that's the same with me. Yeah, because I have heard from some folks that, at first I was like, "Ooh, does this man smile? Does he?" And then they're like, at some point, it was kind of this, "You did something." I'm like, "Oh, he's a human being."
Hmm.
And then, they're like, next thing you know, yeah, we're laughing and joking. I think part of kind of that initial, like you said, when you walk in rooms, et cetera, is, I think part of the guard that we've developed you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
over our lifetimes, that you walk into these spaces, you never know what you're going to occur. Um, what is going to be the atmosphere, what's going to be the vibe. And so I think
Hmm.
a lot of times you walk into these unfamiliar spaces kind of with the guard up, and, get to a place where there's a level of comfortability.
Hmm.
Kind of let more of myself be shown. Um, yeah, but I do think that's probably a kind of protective thing that, particularly Black folks of color have developed
Hmm.
over their life. But I found that even more in this position, um, I allow myself to kind of, I think, be even more fun
Mm.
than I have before. Um,
Oh,
yeah,
tell
with,
me
with
more. Tell me more. I'm interested
I
now.
I
Like,
think because, like, I before there was always someone that I reported to, right?
mm,
And
hmm,
so there's always the thought of, yes, be yourself, but you're also representing this person, and which are always going to represent the place that you work, etc. But I think there was always this piece of thinking of what the next step was,
hmm,
and making sure that, yes, I'm being myself, yes, I'm having fun, but also making sure that I'm still maybe behaving in a way that would allow me to get to the next level.
mm,
Um, well, I'm at that level that I have been
mm,
aspiring to be. And yes, I have to make sure I'm a good representation of the college, but I think I'm more freely myself now than any other place that I've been. Um,
mm,
which has been interesting, but it's also been freeing
yeah,
in so many ways, because it's like, yeah, I report to a board of trustees, but internal to the institution, it's me. And I also think part of that has come from setting examples for others
mm,
within the institution, that, hey, if the president can be up here laughing and having fun, that says that we all can be having fun. Yes, doing
Mm-hmm.
great work, but having fun and laughing and joking along the way. So I think that that's part of kind of why I have gotten to, I think, this place of being even allowing myself to be even more authentic than I have been before. Not that I haven't been myself, but we know there are different kind of levels that
Yeah,
we
yeah, for
turn
sure.
up and turn down depending on kind of where we are and who we're interacting with.
Mm-hmm. It's funny because there's similar threads, and I hope people that are listening to both all of these, there's threads along the line, and that's one of them, which is, and because Tafana spoke on that on her podcast about that piece in a different way, but
Uh-huh.
saying a similar thing because I felt the same way when I got to this. Well, actually, when I became an assistant principal. I was still doing what I was doing, which was being on Twitter, saying what I think, doing all these things, and I kind of got into some things as a teacher because I was on Twitter before it was like popular to do so. So yeah, I'm commenting on the game I just coached and commenting on all these other things, and I was like, ooh, I maybe shouldn't be putting people's name out there like this, and just
Uh-huh.
talking about stuff. So I had to learn how to filter, but at the same time be thoughtful about what I'm talking about. And then when I got to this role, or at least here at Windermere now, I'm in business for myself, so
Right.
I can it's on me, so I can say whatever I
Right.
want, and
Hmm.
it's all about like, but I also still have to represent the business, represent like what we stand for, all those things.
Yep.
So I totally get it, and I understand that like freeing feeling that you just described. So yeah, this is good. We ain't even got any other questions yet, and
Oh,
the
that's all
topic
right.
at hand, but we just all talking.
Yeah.
This is all the same stuff. I mean, it's it's real. So this podcast is like about your story and about
Mhm.
protecting CEOs and their health because you sent an article over, a really good article. I'm going to link it down low, or at least just provide, hopefully I can just find a place for the link to put it down low so people can read it. But protecting your CEO and protecting your black leaders, what made you interested in this subject?
Well, I think a number of things. So one, you as a black person who, um, has gone through life with these goals and whether educational or professional, um, and the stress that comes with it, the joy that comes with it,
Mm-hmm.
but the stress, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think about, from the time I graduated from high school, I had always thought about that next step, that next step. What's the next step? Yes, doing good work and enjoying where I am at the time, but what is that next step? What that's next step? And that comes with some stress, right? And
Mm-hmm.
um, it also stress causes you to sometimes bring on coping with it in not so good ways, like eating and eating and eating and not
Mm-hmm.
working out, and what that results in. Um, and so, I've had my struggles kind of along the way, and I also saw what sometimes those struggles impacted me in a way that I couldn't, I think, stop me performing at the highest
Mm-hmm.
level that I could.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in being a person that always wants to function at the very highest level that I can, it bothered me. So it
Mm-hmm.
became very personal of how can I, address some of the stress, et cetera, in more positive ways. And I'm not saying that I figured all of that out or have
Mm-hmm.
gotten all of that place yet. And then I think I thought about it's become even more important to me in this role, because you hear people say this all of the time that being a CEO or president or whoever is that highest level in that organization can become very lonely,
Mm-hmm.
because you don't have a colleague within your institution, and you deal with all of these things that can happen within an institution, and it can become very, very lonely. Um, Now, fortunately, and I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit later. Yes, I have folks I can talk
Mm-hmm.
to, and
Yeah.
that has helped a lot. Um, but since I've been here, even in the Washington community colleges, there have been presidents who have passed away,
Dang.
and can't say, and there are health things, but we know that stress exasperates
Yep.
health issues. And then also, as you mentioned with the article, this past fall, I think it hit home for so many Black CEOs, particularly in higher education, where there was Dr. Orinthia Montague, who's a community college president who passed away in office. Dr. Joanne Epps, who is president of Temple University, who passed away in office. Um, and then over the past couple of months, and I'm looking to make sure I get her name right, Dr. Antoinette Candia Bailey, who was a vice president at Lincoln University, who committed suicide. And this is
Whoa.
all three Black women serving in leadership positions in higher education. And I
Oh.
think that was a wake up call for lots of people. Um, as Black folk, we knew this stress was always here, and
Mm-hmm.
many times we just suck it up and move forward because, there's always the thought of we have to work harder and longer and better than other folks to get to a certain place and sustain that place. But I think that really gave an awakening to so many people that people don't understand unless you're in the role, the stress that comes with these
Mm-hmm.
kind of roles. And so I'm interested in it because it's personal um, for me, but also, lots of my friends and colleagues who are serving in these roles as well. And, the health problems that some have had, the divorces that some have had, substance abuse problems that some have had. And so as we and I think things are changing in regards, particularly in the Black community, where we traditionally haven't talked a lot about mental health and wellness. And
Mm-hmm.
so many of us just, internalize that. Well, things I think are getting a little better. And so I think that's why I've been very interested in this particular piece because it has hit home for me and so many people that I know and adore and love.
Yeah, it's funny that you brought this up because when you texted it to me,
Mhm.
I was like, man, I've been saying this about because as a black administrator in the Tacoma public schools, um, I felt that same weight of I was the only black administrator on my team, and so I was carrying a different weight at a school where we had a lot of diversity. So
Mhm.
what you're doing to that leader, and I'm just giving an example of what you just articulated, and this is just a hard example from lived experience for people that are listening. I knew I was going to be probably of a 3-person team running a school or a high school. I knew I was going to be the only black, a lot of times a black man with a team of 2 white counterparts. And so if I'm in a diverse area, I know I'm carrying a weight that's a little bit different. Now, I understand that I'm not taking that away from women and the weight that they carry in different ways and things like that.
Right.
Just I want to make sure I
Absolutely.
preface this what my comments with, like, I understand that other people are dealing with other things, but the weight of systemic racism is a deep one to bear, especially when you're looking at the outcomes of that racism and you're serving in that capacity. So, and to improve those outcomes, you have a different weight that you carry as a black leader or administrator. And so,
Absolutely.
I think that people, um, I knew that path was going to be my path before I even started. Like, I was 3 years in, I was like, okay, I kind of see how this is going, because if I were making the team, yeah, I'd want a black person here, I'd need this and I need this, and it's just like, but that's not fair to the to the person from a marginalized community, because the weight that they got to go home with, the stress. I was called an Uncle Tom
Mm.
and a racist in 24 hours. Like, black folk call me Uncle Tom because I'm trying to like keep the kid out of trouble, whatever. And then I'm coming down to school. All right, cool, come down here, man. Let's chop it up, like.
Mhm.
And then the next thing, a white family's calling me a racist because I'm doing whatever, and I'm like, damn, and that hurt. Like,
Mhm.
it always hurts to be called an Uncle Tom or something like that. And it always hurt because, like, I'm literally doing the work from my people. Like, how you going to call me that?
Yes.
So
Hmm.
um, so anyway, that added weight that we carry in these roles is huge. And so as I got out, when you sent that, I was like, man, I've been talking about supporting black and brown administrators, and somehow, whether that has, I think I could serve that role personally
Hmm.
because I've walked in those shoes, and I actually currently do when I go to FOSS and I talk to people who want to be admin, and they bend my ear, and I'm like, here's what you need to look out for.
Yeah,
And it's the real, and so, man, it's so
it
real.
is. Yeah, it is. And as you said, it's kind of the extra weight of wanting to be a good representation for folks who look like you, because um, many people within predominantly white institutions haven't had the experience of seeing someone who looks like me at the head of an organization. And so, wanting to be that amazing representation for people who look like me,
Hmm.
also at the same time, wanting to do well by everyone at the institution, no matter
Hmm.
who they are, what they look like, what their background is. And it's a balance that you have to carry, but the weight that comes with it, because as you said, kind of in many ways, you get it from all sides.
Hmm.
So, you want to do this thing, and some folks think that you only want to do it because you're black. It's like, no, the data shows that this is what we should be doing.
Right.
It's, and I think some people bring that kind of lens to it that, yeah, he only wants to do, I'm sure he only wants to support black students, black employees. And I'm not just talking about my experience here, but my experiences
Hmm.
throughout my administrative career. And that's a significant weight to carry.
Hmm.
Also thinking about, as you said, living in a society where there is systemic racism,
Hmm.
you also have to, and I know, as you said, women and other people of color, other marginalized people from other marginalized communities also experience this where things happen and you grapple with, well, did they say that because I'm black?
Hmm.
Did they say it because I'm just the administrator that is in front of them at the time? For me, are they saying it because of the combination with me being black and gay? Are
Hmm.
they saying it because they look at me and think I'm this extremely young person that has, questioned whether or not I have the experience needed to even be in this role?
To be
Um,
fair, you coming in kind of glistening and
well,
clean and clean cut, looking like, I mean,
I can't take credit for that.
you
That's
coming in glistening, skin looking all like
well,
pause. I mean, I'm not, but like
I can't take credit for it. The Lord above and my mother and my father. They're beautiful people. They just, came together. Uh, you think about it. You have these experiences, and you're like, why? And you think about all these things because it impacts, in some ways, how you even respond.
Hmm.
Um, and so, there is that extra weight that comes to it, um, and also knowing that just because of what you look like, there are some people who don't want you to be in that position that you're in. And some of that is not just from people who look different than you.
Man, to talk,
It, it's it's not.
yeah.
And so you think like when you put all of that together, and that's all of that together with mixed with you trying to do the work that's needed um, to lead whatever it is that you're leading, and then all the stuff that you're carrying along with it, it could be a recipe for disaster in some ways.
Right.
It could be. And unfortunately, you see some of that with um, leaders being let go after very short periods of time who someone else who may have looked different than them gets this long runway
Mm.
to make mistakes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But sometimes folks who look like us, that runway is not very long.
Mm.
So it is. It's a lot to carry.
Mm.
And, that's also why I believe that there are some folks who are extremely, extremely talented and could serve extremely well in some of these roles, but they look and say, mm-mm,
Hmm.
nope, I'm good because of all the other stuff that comes with it. If I can just do the work, Yeah, but all the other stuff that comes with it, particularly when you're at level of president and CEO, because
Hmm.
someone told me one time, and I had to think, and I hadn't really thought about it this way. At every level you come up, there's more of your body exposed to being shot at.
Mm.
And so that's why, there are folks who could do exceptionally well, but are like, nah, I'm good because all of the other stuff that comes
Yeah.
with that piece.
That's that's a good way to. I mean, you basically just explained that weight. So when we talk about that weight, you just pretty much broke that down to a T right there, like in terms of what that means. And I think that that's just a fascinating thing. And I read a book called "Black Faces and White Places." Have you ever read Dr. Randall Pinkett's book,
I
"Black
haven't I
Faces and
haven't
White
read it.
Places"?
Hmm.
It's good because it's like a 10-step process. And I'm not shilling his book. Like I sat
Right.
down with the man for lunch, but he was the first winner of the first black winner of The Apprentice. You remember
Oh,
Donald Trump's show, The Apprentice? So I met
yes.
him around that time in
Uh-huh.
2016. He had a book, and Dr. Melanie Cunningham at POU,
Hmm.
she was doing
The
some
Peace
work, and
Queen.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And we did a book study on that book at Foss with some kids, and then at the end, she had him come and talk to the POU kids, and we did a partnership. And then he came and had lunch with the Foss kids, and I was like, I don't think y'all understand. Like this dude is he's big. Like he
Mhm.
and so we were sitting down there in our little room eating, and I was like, man, tell me, is he because he worked for the dude, but the book is the premise of the book is when he got to the end and they were both standing up there, and I just can envision this on national TV on NBC. It was on NBC Thursday nights, and he had beaten his predecessor as a white lady. He'd beaten her already in the earlier in the season, and then
Mhm.
he beat her again in the finals.
Mhm.
And then 45 asked him, would you hire her? And
Mm.
his response was, he's like, first of all, in my head, he's like, I've never seen this happen before on the show. Whoever wins just wins.
Right.
They've never been, but I'm the first black winner. And then he said, and his response was, "Sir, I thought the show's called The Apprentice, not the Apprentice." You know,
Mm.
and so, but basically, the fact that he even got questioned
Mhm.
at the very end after he had beaten this person twice, it was happening on national TV, and this is prior
Mhm.
to him being even in the presidential or
Right.
politics in general,
Right.
right? So we already know he's how he thinks,
Right.
and so I think that it was just an interesting. So Dr. Randall Pinkett had this book just based on that experience, and he's just a written other stuff, but really good book. Gave me a lot of perspective, and just so this experience that we all I say that I tell that story like that, this experience that you speak of and
Mhm.
everybody else that's a leader, it's not like a fable. Like at some point people just have to listen. And so to our point about like support
Mhm.
for black leaders, like what
Mhm.
does that look like? And I honestly don't know yet, but hopefully we start the conversation of being more serious, especially given the deaths that you just talked about and the way that
Yeah.
people are. I mean, that just breaks my heart to hear that. So
Yeah.
on that,
Yeah.
I want to get to this next question. We're going to come back to a
No,
little bit
good.
more of that. I want to get to this next question of you've served in different geographic locations,
Mhm.
and so how is the Pacific Northwest different than other areas of you've served? And staying on the thread of this support,
Mhm.
what's that support look like, if any at all, or is it different in every geographic areas, or how has the Pacific Northwest been different to you
Um,
in all different ways, whatever way you
yeah,
want to put
well, one is I never thought I'd be living in Washington, in Tacoma, Washington. It was just never on my radar. Now being here almost 6 years, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be at this
mm,
particular point in time, and
mm,
I know we'll get to some other things, but this is where I'm supposed to be. And you know, when you don't live in the Pacific Northwest, you hear about how liberal the Pacific Northwest
mm.
is.
Uh-oh.
And whereas I've lived in Texas and Georgia, Virginia, the DC, Maryland, Virginia area,
Mm-hmm.
all of these different places, and you hear about how liberal it is here. And there are lots of things that are more liberal than so many other parts of the country.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, for example, we have the community colleges are legislatively mandated to do training on anti-racism.
Oh,
Whereas there are other parts of the country, they can't even, I have colleagues who can't even talk about anti-racism, diversity, equity, inclusion, etc.
oh wow.
But when you get here, you realize that it's not as liberal
Mm,
as I think even some folks within the state or within the Pacific Northwest still believe it's to be. Because there is, I think some people have called it Seattle freeze or
yep.
something like that, where there is this folks don't want to say what they really want to say,
Mm-hmm.
um, or they have these feelings, but kind of go all the way around the bend to have conversations. Um, And I think that there are some folks here who really believe that they're doing the right thing, but I think the reasons behind it are questionable.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I think that that's been one big difference. Or, well, if you're in certain parts of Georgia and Texas, you know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
There are some folks who are not, they aren't ashamed at all to say it, what they believed, etc. Whereas here, it's like, no, there are people who believe these things, but how they share it is very, very different and
Yes.
impacts you in very different ways.
Yes.
Um, Say things to your face, but then next thing you know, it's something very, very different. So I mean, I've been in meetings where we've talked about things, and it's like, all right, we agree on this, and then I hear later like, what I know
Mm-hmm.
we just talked about this and we agreed upon this, but now it's like, oh no. So that has been an adjustment.
Mm.
And I know other folks who have particularly come from East Coast, et cetera, have mentioned that as well. But
Interesting.
for me, because I've lived in so many places, I've learned to adjust very, very quickly.
Right.
Um, and I think what also has helped me, as I mentioned before, is being really, really clear about who I am, what my values are, what I stand for. And so I am upfront and honest with some of the conversations that some people don't want to have or want to talk all the way around the corner in the street before really getting to this place. So I
Mm.
think that has been a difference. Because again, you're in other parts of the country, you just hear about, oh, it is so liberal there, um, and again, in many many ways, it is much more liberal, free, and open. Um, I think one thing that has also been different is, which I really really enjoy, this is a much more laid back
Mm.
place to live. I have been in other places where it's like a rat race.
Yep.
No matter, personally, professionally, and personally, it's like
Yeah.
a rat race, and everybody is trying to outdo one another. And here, it's like, no, slow down.
Yeah.
People are much more laid back, which I really, really enjoy. Um, I've been in places where you were suited and booted every single day, shirt,
Mm-hmm.
tie, I mean, every single day. And I enjoy the fact that that's really not the culture
Mm-hmm.
here. Yes, there are times I need to be completely suited and booted. There are other times where I can be a little bit more casual than I've ever been before.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I think those are two big things that are a little bit different from other places that I've lived. Um, but again, I never thought I'd be here, but I really, really enjoy being here.
Mm.
I enjoy, the work. I enjoy being at the college. I enjoy living in Tacoma, and I think also Tacoma is a different place.
Mm-hmm.
It's not too big, not too small, and also kind of the spirit of collaboration that you just don't see in lots of other places. So, everything has pros and cons, but overall, this is a really, really good place to live and work. And although I never thought I'd be here, I'm extremely grateful and glad that I am here.
Well, you bring such a wealth of experience, and having lived in those other areas and being able to tap on that and give us, first of all, like people up here, feedback, myself included, about how we move.
Mhm.
And it's helpful for people to hear that, and hear the real version of it, because it is true. Like when I say, when I go down to Texas and be like, I love Texas. Like from where I was at, I loved all the people. I just loved it. And people are like, really? And I'm like, I mean, yeah, the politics or whatever. But like when you go to different areas, I would
Mhm.
rather have it be like people tell me what it is. And the
Mhm.
funny thing is like you still interact. It ain't like but you know where they stand, and you just move with respect. I'm like, cool, I ain't gonna change you. You ain't gonna change me, and we don't mess with each other like that. But like, we got to get this thing done. And I actually really liked that. I enjoyed that. That
Mhm.
was different for me. And because I had some interactions down there, because I was in Beaumont, so like
Nope.
I'm out in the country, so it ain't. Some towns it was like, yep, it just is what it is, and you just know what it is. But you can still, depending on the time, you just make sure you move how you want to move. But you just move with respect, and I enjoyed that. Like I was just like, huh, that's different for me. So yeah, I do agree with everything you just said, and it's great perspective. So I think that you're important for our and for the community college you serve, and just in general, Tacoma leadership wise. I think it's important that we have you here. It's
Thank you.
I think I feel honored. Like I think we're honored, and we should support and celebrate that.
Thank you.
So
Honored to be here.
yeah. So do you the article brings up a topic on microaggressions and doubt. So you kind of touched on that a little bit.
Mhm.
And do you feel that how do those doubts about leadership abilities impact Black and brown leaders differently? You already touched on it, and not
Mhm.
only just Black and brown leaders, but you mentioned gay, and being a gay Black and brown leader, like you almost
Mhm.
got two strikes against, not against you, quote unquote,
Right. Yeah.
me, but you know what I'm saying.
Absolutely. Hmm.
Just as a saying, a phrase, but yeah, how do those microaggressions and doubt of leadership? How does that impact you from your experience?
It makes you doubt yourself sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
and question whether or not you have what it takes to excel in that particular position.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because I even here, and I've shared with others some of the things that have happened here. You go back to this place of, and I remember asking someone at the college, why are your expectations of me different than the folks who were here before me?
Mm.
Why? Can you tell me why? And I going back to, as I mentioned before, then I'm saying, well, why? What are the things about me that are different? Yes, I'm the first Black president. Is
Mm.
that what it is? Um,
Are you
you
the
know,
first Black president? You're the first Black president?
mhm.
Come on, come on.
Um, but it's so you sometimes start to question yourself. And I remember also someone who is a person who I really trust. It's great to have people at the college who are going to, or no matter where you are you know are down for you, and will bring you things, and are just and I remember one of them saying, hey, there's someone that it looks like you have a good relationship with.
Mm.
Watch it. Because I was walking through the hall, and they were having, their water cooler conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard this person say, I don't care what he does, I will never trust him.
Mm.
Huh?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and it's just like, well, why?
Right.
Why? Like literally, why? What is it about me that you can acknowledge great work that I've led. You can
Mm-hmm.
acknowledge that there have been significant improvements at the college, but you will never trust me.
Yeah.
Um, and I'll give you this example kind of. So first commencement. So I got here in May of 2018. So the first commencement June of 2018.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm in the room getting dressed, putting on the robe. I love donning my regalia. It's
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm get upset that I can only wear it a couple times a year, and
Yeah.
so to all you all out there, if you happen to see me walking through the grocery store with my regalia on, that's not I just want to put it on. But I was getting dressed, put it on, and you'll see a lot of presidents in their regalia have like this gold chain and
Mm-hmm.
with the college seal on it.
Mm-hmm.
And there were some couple of white female faculty who came up and said, "Oh well, that looks really nice. Like, did you just buy that?"
Whoa. Whoa.
And I was like, no. Um, it was here when I got here. And so I was like, no, not here when I got here. But then I'm like, well, why would you ask me that? So then I asked one of the people in the office, who purchased this and when was it?
Mm.
And it was years before
Mm-hmm.
I got to the college. So
Mm-hmm.
when I was getting dressed the next time, I found them and said, "Oh, I know you asked this question, but just to let you know, it's been two presidents ago who got this. So are you not attending commencement, or
Mm.
did you assume something because there's something different about me?" Of
That's
course, there was an audible gasp, and I just walked away because I left because my point was made. And but those kind of ends again. I'm at this place now where if you want to put it out, I'm going to come right along with you. I'm always going
mm-hmm.
to be respectful. I'm always going to be respectful.
Mm-hmm.
And I think again from we were talking about a little bit about what I've noticed with the Pacific Northwest, some people just don't like that. It's like they're used to
Mm.
throwing it out and the president just taking it. No,
Mm-mm.
no, no, no. But that strength, I can display the strength, but that still doesn't mean that sometimes I don't internalize that.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, well, if they think this, how many other people think this? And should I even be here?
Right.
Um, and that takes a toll on you. Those little things. Whoever said something about 1,000 little cuts or something.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. I know I'm completely messing it up.
No, I know what
Um,
you're saying.
but that happens, and you do start to question. Is do I have what it takes, or are they asking these things because I'm just not performing in the way that I should?
Right.
Um, but then you find ways to kind of deal with it, um, and then I've you get up every day, and as I talk with people and kind of mentor them, I say what I also found is just get up every day, do amazing work, and let the work also speak for itself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because for
Uh,
those sayers, the college, there have been significant improvements made to the college during my time here.
oh yeah.
And that is not, and I want to be clear, that is not just because of me. There are lots of faculty and staff who have done amazing work. And so I can feel good about that piece. And so know that, yeah, this is where I'm supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And what that also does is to those folks who were those naysayers, what yeah, no one is ever going to be happy about anything.
Mm-hmm.
No one's ever going to be happy about everything, but it does then show, yeah, you said these things, but look at how we've improved as an institution. So that's also something that's like, well, let me continue to do good work and let the work speak for itself.
Right, man. I did not realize you were the first black president there. So that's huge.
Yeah.
That's major, and I want to acknowledge that because I understand how it feels to be the first of anything or whatever. High school basketball. I was telling this to someone the other day because stadium where I used to coach up the street, they have a black coach right now, and they're at state. They play tonight at state. And when I
Huh.
went to the last state game there, I was like, man, when we open this gym, this is exactly what I was so proud. I just felt this sense of pride because I remember when the gym opened up, or they remodeled the school, and we came back, and then I wasn't the head coach at that time, and then the next year I was the head coach. The second year, the new school had opened, and we had these visions of like, man, if this place is packed, and it could be, and it was there, and then I look at the sidelines, and it's this young brother, and I'm like, oh, I just wanted to like, it just made me feel so good, and I was telling someone because I was the second black boys basketball head coach in Tacoma history for the 5 high schools. Owen Chambers being number one, but the difference is Owen was on the east side. I was here in North Tacoma,
Uh-huh.
so the energy he was getting versus
It's
the energy I
different.
was
Yeah.
getting
It's
wasn't
very
the same,
different. Right.
at all.
Mm-hmm.
And what I had to navigate, I didn't realize at the time, and we were losing, so I had to be perfect. Like there was nothing you could really say about how I was doing the program, what I was running, what I was doing. Our GPA was above a team through GPA 3.0, all 3 teams for the first 2 years, and then it kind of fell off the second. And then it was just 2 teams, but I had to make sure I was doing all of those things to make
Mm-hmm.
sure that you couldn't say nothing about, like, yeah, you could talk about the product on the court all you want, and that's fair. That's fair game. It's my job to prepare and do all that. But in terms of how I'm going about this job and my why, you can never question that.
Mm-hmm.
And people still did ad nauseum because it didn't result to wins in a lot of ways. Even though
Yep.
our talent level was not the same as my counterparts,
Mm-hmm.
and to add to that, and people don't know about this, when stadium opened up, we couldn't accept transfers. So in
Mm-hmm.
Tacoma, you know how a lot of people be transferring and stuff.
Right.
Ours was closed because everyone wanted to come there. It was a brand new school, so they closed it down to
Wow.
just the people in the area, and especially so that the affluent families could get in, because which it's their neighborhood school. That's cool. It should be that way. But at the same time, I was like, and I had to deal with that. Like,
Mm.
I couldn't have just transfers coming on in here. That's just not how it
Right.
was working. So there's just a lot of things that people don't see and or don't. And then of course coming to Windermere, I was I'm the first black owner of Windermere, and
Wow.
I didn't know that either. And
Mm-hmm.
so I guess I'd tell like you being the first black president at TCC, my alma mater, is just I just the fact that I'm here talking, we're having this podcast is just super dope. Like I just think it's when I look at the trajectory of the history of this community, I
Mm-hmm.
don't think of it that way, but at some point I will reflect back on it and be like, damn, this is crazy.
Well,
Like,
I can make it even a little bit more for you. So the 3 finalists for this position were all black men.
whew, wow.
And
So
you know,
they know there's a change that needed to be made, or is that like, I mean,
yeah, I think the board did. Yeah, I definitely think the board did. And I remember, getting the call to be a finalist, and I was like, "Ooh, I'm a finalist." Yeah, me being a black man, that's I know they want some change, right? And when I saw the list, I was like, I mean, happy, extreme happy, but also like,
yeah,
oh, I can't play that one.
yeah.
But yeah, it was all the 3 finalists were all 3 black men.
I love that so much.
Hmm.
I
And I
love that
remember
so much.
asking the search consultant, um, is the college really, really ready for this?
Mm,
And I can say overall, yeah.
it's been
Um,
ready.
yeah. Um, Definitely. And
Overdue, actually.
yeah, I mean, I think in so many of our spaces, it's overdue. Um, but also think about Tacoma. When I said I'd never thought I'd be here, I was also like, are there any black people in
Yeah,
Tacoma?
yeah, tell me about that.
Because
What
I'm
was
like,
your
way, way over there.
expectations versus reality. What's that like in terms of like you black people here? Like, because
Yes.
you're coming from other areas where there's just black spaces where there's
Yeah,
like
and the last place
writers and
I
lawyers
lived
and
was in Atlanta.
yeah.
So I moved
So
here from
that's like
Atlanta.
yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, wait a minute, are there black people? And this
Mm,
is, and so of course I research and the percentage is low relative
mm-hmm.
to other places that I've lived. But then also when doing research of Tacoma, I'm just like, the mayor is black.
Mm,
The superintendent at the time
mm-hmm.
um was black. Well, she still is black. Um
Mm-hmm.
the mayor before the mayor black. Um it was you started to look, oh, the president of University of Puget Sound black.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I know and then there's this thing called the Black Collective that they've been meeting for 50 plus
Mm-hmm.
years every Saturday. I'm like, wow.
Mm,
So there's got to be a strong black community in this city. If there are these black folk in these key positions within the city. And so coming here, it is I was pleasantly surprised.
mm.
Um because yes, you see these things, but still moving here, when you look at it, it's like 10% black, you're like, am I going to see like a black person like once every 10 days? And that's not it.
Yeah.
You see, this is a very diverse community,
Mm-hmm.
and there is a strong contingent of black folks who are in this community and folks who are still in leadership. I mean, if you
Yeah.
think right now from a higher education perspective in Tacoma, there's Bates, UWT, UPS, TCC, Evergreen, their Tacoma campus. Out of those
Mm-hmm.
five, four are black. Um, four are black. And the fifth is an Asian woman. So you're still, so out of all five, you're talking about people of color.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, yeah, that was what I have enjoyed, the diverse community here. But I think because of the size of Tacoma, um, more concentrated.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was kind of one of my things of like, is there really going to be a strong black community? And
Mm-hmm.
yes, there is.
Well,
Um,
the fact that you're still here it speaks volumes. I mean, I think
yeah.
that it has to be fairly strong for you to have those reservations coming in, and then six
Yep.
years later, you're still here and doing this work, this amazing work at TCC.
Absolutely.
So that's
And through things like you said, where I met your wife with American Leadership Forum, and so I've made great connections with and built friendships with lots of folks, and particularly lots of professional black folks here in this community. I meet your wife, but then I connect with you, and
yeah,
then
yeah.
you think about just the folks in this community who are doing black folks who are doing such good work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if I didn't feel that part there, because yes, you can be in a diverse community, but you also, as human beings, have this innate desire to also have a community of the people who look like you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and if I didn't feel that was there, yeah, I wouldn't be here now almost 6 years, but it is present here. And even when I talk to some folks who are in Seattle who don't even realize the black power that is here in this community, that's surprising they don't realize it. But there are still folks like even in Seattle that don't even know kind of the black presence here in this community.
Oh, really? Yeah. So, I mean, we just answered my next question, which was kind of speaking on the importance of that support, those support networks, and um, particularly for Black and Brown leaders in academia
Hmm.
specifically. Um, and I'm really big on that piece because of the work is so specific in terms of the outcomes and
Yeah.
what we see in terms of the gaps.
Hmm.
And so having that support network that you speak of is really crucial. Is there any like built-in support networks for people in academia, like in terms of like whether it's college presidents, I'm thinking like I only think in terms of Tacoma School District and
Uh-huh.
how and I speak with Justine all the time on this down at CAB, but how we can support our marginalized community leaders. Is there anything in at the post
Yeah,
secondary college level?
yeah. So I think of particularly specifically with the community colleges. So there is the President's Roundtable, which is
Mm,
a group composed of Black community college presidents, which is a great support network. And it's part of the American Association of Community Colleges. And so
okay.
there are groups like the PRT for Black community college presidents, for other groups of color as well. And then PRT that's a great group in support. There are also kind of leadership programs, etc. The American Association of Community Colleges always has a summer President's Academy Summer Institute, which is a good time to kind of connect with folks, rejuvenate. I think we particularly in those kind of larger groups, can do still a better job in supporting
Mm-hmm.
um, women CEOs and CEOs who are of color. But some of those things, as you referenced that article, really needs to be done at the local level.
Yes. Yes.
And, the article talked about ways for boards to support their CEOs of color. And, one of the things that I did is I read the article.
Mm-hmm.
Um, of course, it reinforced and mirrored some of my experiences here.
Yep.
But also, at the end of reading the article, I could say that I'm very fortunate because I have a board that has been doing lots of things in this article that was encouraged for boards to do. And I'm very, very fortunate for that because
Mm-hmm.
that's another reason why I'm still here. So, the board has been very, very supportive from day one.
Yep.
Making sure I have time off. Making sure that any kind of supports that I may need are there. And not only that is checking in and asking questions, checking in to make sure I'm doing okay, and are there other things that can be done to assist. And so I'm very fortunate that I have a board that again has been from day one. And I think of it may have been during my first evaluation. I think it was during my first evaluation meeting, and one of the things that the board did was they sent out kind of a 360, so sent out a survey to folks, not everyone at the college, but my direct reports, like
Mm-hmm.
council leaders, union leaders, etc. And there were a couple of comments in there that said something like, I remember one said something like, there are things that I know he's experienced that the person writing truly believes he's only experiencing it because he's Black.
Mm.
Like they're of saying that, I know there are things that are happening
Yep.
just
Yep.
because he's Black. And
Yep.
I remember addressing it in my written document. And as we were going through, we kind of skipped over that part inadvertently. And one of the board members was like, hold up. We need to go back to this.
Mm-hmm.
Let's
Mm-hmm.
have a conversation. Tell us, what have you been experiencing? And let's think about ways that we can support you in that.
Yeah.
I didn't have to bring it up. They were like, oh, no, no, no. Wait a minute. We skipped over what is a very important part. We need to go back to that.
Mm-hmm.
And because also sometimes what you see is boards across the country who have the desire to bring on someone from a diverse background,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not ready to support them,
Yep.
and the college is not ready to support them. And that hasn't been my experience here. It hasn't been, in which again has allowed me to um, have time off. And um, so for instance, my contract at the end of every 3 years, I get 6 continuous weeks off.
Mm.
So like this summer, I'll be off the months of July and August.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a lot of my colleagues don't have that.
Mm-hmm.
More and more of them are getting that. Because every time I get a chance to be in front of trustees, like presenting with one of my trustees to trustees, conferences,
Mm-hmm.
etc., I tell boards, y'all need to give your presidents time, give them
Mm-hmm.
time. No, I'm like, y'all, unless you've been a president yourself, you don't know what this means and what it
Right.
feels like, the stress that comes with it, the weight of an entire institution on your shoulders at all times.
Mm-hmm.
My board recognized that very early on. And not just the time, but when I'm off, they allow me to be off.
Off. Mm-hmm.
Because that's something else that happens. It's, oh yeah, we give you time, but we're going to be expecting you to be checking emails and responding. Yeah, that's not being off. And my board has supported that since day one of when I'm off, I'm off. Like during the summer, I'll appoint acting presidents, and they have the authority, full authority that I would have. And
Mm-hmm.
trustees, if they need things, they work with them, and they have stayed true to that. I think the first summer that I took had that July and August off, I may have been contacted like twice, but that was like almost like week number 7,
Mm.
um, where I was actually back here in Tacoma,
Yep.
just resting, etc. And and so I think that is extremely important for folks to know. Yeah, let people, when if you're gonna give them time to be off. And I remember me and one of our trustees, Latasha Wortham, you may
Mm-hmm.
know
Yep.
LT. We were presenting at a kind of new trustee orientation thing, and she brought this up of encouraging her colleagues to make sure that they're giving time. And she said, this is what we have written into this contract. And
Mm-hmm.
no, a trustee said, from another state said something like, well, how can you do that? Like, who's running the college? um, One of the vice presidents. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean, we can't, like, you can't just be gone. Like, and then what my response to her was, if your president gets sick right now, who's going to be running the college?
Yeah, right, right.
One of the
And
vice
how does the
presidents.
vice president get that experience to be a
That,
president at
that
some point
that
in
as
time?
well, right? And then if your president dies today, who's going to be running the college? The
Right.
vice president.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to wait until the president gets sick? It's like, no, it's and so all of that I think is important. The support at the local level has to be there. And again, I'm very, very fortunate and grateful to the trustees at TCC who
Mm-hmm.
have recognized that from day one. And they're really a model for so many other boards of trustees.
Yeah, I think what you just did, because that was a theme in the article, which was, how do boards and boards and trustees support black leaders, and that was one of the themes, and you just laid that all out there in terms of, and gave some examples of what that looks like for you and your board, because that was an offshoot question that I had, which was like, how do you help other boards and trustees? Now here's the part that I think about that's fascinating and has some impact here, and or we can talk about it, but like, so the idea, so what if, like, let's say that you do have some black and brown boards and trustees, and they're in their own different types of leadership roles. It might not be a CEO, but it might be middle management, it might be something like that. So, and it might be a different tier, but it's still the same concepts apply in terms of
Mhm.
support. So how do you have, black leadership who needs support in these other ways, but also might have another black leader supporting them, but they also need that support. I don't know. It's almost like, can you pour from a halfway filled cup, to do that support, or think of it because you're kind of trying to survive yourself versus, yeah, I don't know. It's just this weird dynamic that does
Yeah,
exist.
I think, well, I think Black folks, other folks of color have learned um, how to support others, even when we're in the need of support ourselves, because
Mm-hmm.
we understand how important that is. But I also think some of that comes through just open and honest conversation
Mm-hmm.
of, because when I was a vice president, I strongly thought I knew what this role is
Mm,
and what all um it took and
yeah.
everything, I thought I knew until you get into the seat. You're like, oh boy.
Mm.
Oh no, I was kind of there. Um, and so if you have a relationship with like the board where I always felt I could have open and honest conversation with them because they presented it in that way and asked questions that opened up the door to have conversations.
Hmm.
I think just to have that open and honest conversation, to even if the person is in their own role is experiencing burnout, or
Hmm.
that they can still hear from you and understand what you're experiencing because of the role in which they're in. And because
Hmm.
in that relationship, they are serving in the role, in this instance, as a trustee.
Right. Right.
So I think a lot of Black and Brown leaders, we have learned to kind of segment things.
Hmm.
And so, yes, I can understand the issues or concerns that I have in my own role, but I also understand this is the role in this relationship that I'm
Hmm.
serving. And I wish I had, and I can, there may be someone to say, I wish I had a board member, or with my experience, my boss, my board member, etc., hasn't been very supportive. I know what
Hmm.
that feels. So I want to make sure that I am giving the support to this particular person that I know is needed because of the experience that I'm having now.
Right.
And I think a lot of us understand that piece and don't think in a way of, well, because I don't have this support in the role in my day-to-day role, I'm not going to be supportive of this person in
Hmm.
in this role. Um, and I think it takes very special folks to be able to do that. And
Hmm.
fortunately, we have lots of them in our community who understand that. Um, but I also think it's important for folks like me who do have that support to continue to be vocal in spaces,
Hmm. Hmm.
particularly those who are trustees or other presidents, leaders, etc., um, to continue to kind of ring the alarm about how important this is.
Right.
But it's also a reminder to me as well of how that it's also important for me to make sure I'm supporting the folks who report to me
Right.
in ways that they need as well. So, I've told the vice presidents, I've told them I recognize that I have a contract and that has, the board has given me this opportunity. And I'm opening up the opportunity to you as well. If you feel as though you need to take off a significant amount of time, come up with a plan. Let's talk about it.
Right. Right.
Because that is important as well. And I need to be modeling that for them as well.
Man, that's deep. That's a lot there. But I like the idea that you said, and I'm a compartmentalizer, so I really resonated with me because I can compartmentalize well, and I know that's something that I can do well that maybe others can't, and so that's what has protected me in some ways, in terms of like being in the role of support versus being in the role of asking and needing the support.
Yep.
I'm not good at asking, and I think that's another thing that us as leaders uh, can be better at, which is asking for the support and saying like,
Mhm.
I need help, and
Yep.
that's something because of the armor that you've had to have coming up, and like what you'd spoken to earlier in this conversation about having to always look forward to the next thing and be good,
Mhm.
and be excellent,
Mhm.
and and those who are have that type of drive typically aren't ones that be the first to ask for help, so
Which
or say
is,
that they need help.
yeah, which is why it's important for the people or person they report to open up the door to that
Hmm.
conversation,
Hmm.
particularly with women and folks of color.
Hmm.
Because yeah, we work, internalize it, try to figure it out. And also I think some folks are in situations where um, they feel as though if they do ask for help, is that sending an indication to the board or whoever is their supervisor, et cetera, that they really don't have what it takes to be in that role.
Hmm.
And there are all kinds of reasons folks don't. But that's why it is important for boards and other folks who are supervising to open up that door and say, how can we be helpful?
Yeah, no, that's big. So, ending, we're gonna wrap up in here, and this has been a great conversation. Dr. Ivan Harrell here is dropping jewels, and so being more specific, like what advice do you have for emerging Black and Brown leaders who are? Because I know a couple, like my friends Tashi and Trevor, and I have some people at my old school who are going through admin programs right now, and I'm always just there as a resource if they need me. I'm always at Foss on Fridays,
Mhm.
um, and I've always just wanted to always be there for someone because I know I had that with certain people, and I wanted to just be able to give back in a real casual way. It's not formal at all. It's just ask me
Right.
anything. Um, what advice do you have for emerging Black and Brown leaders who are going through their programs right now and
Hmm.
aspiring to be potentially a president of a community college, or who knows where their path takes them?
Yeah. In no kind of particular order, I think one thing is to make sure that we're always giving back to those folks who, maybe, kind of one step from where we are or whatever the case may be, because I wouldn't be here today if I didn't have those folks who poured into me and helped me along the way and still continue to help me. I also think of one of the things I see sometimes we make a mistake is wanting to this is my first presidency,
Hmm.
and there are some who will take their first presidency, their first principalship, their first superintendent job almost anywhere for the first to get in the door.
Get in the door, yep.
A lot of times it doesn't work out the way that they want to. And so one of the things I think is important is to be very careful and do your due diligence,
Mm.
your research, ask all the tough questions that need to be asked for you to really think about, is this the right place for you? And I think sometimes we getting these places and like in interviews and we don't want to ask some of the hard questions because, well, maybe they won't hire me. Well, do you want to be at a place that you ask this question about work-life balance and they don't want to hire you because you asked the question about work-life balance? That's probably
Right.
not where you want to be to begin with. But I think we need to do a better job of asking very specific, what are the needs that you have walking into this place, and
Mm.
ask those questions about it.
Mm.
I asked, what do y'all think work-life balance is and kind of what does that mean for this particular role?
Mm-hmm.
Um, folks should ask about what are the kinds of supports that I will have if I'm given this opportunity. How will you, as the board of trustees or board of education, whatever the case may be supportive of me in this role?
Mm.
Um, what does it mean for you if there is something controversial happening at the institution? How would you support me or whoever in those particular things? So I think it is important to ask very specific questions, and
Mm.
sometimes we're going to be surface, say, well, what questions do you have? Oh, well, you
Mm.
know what are the three big things you want someone to accomplish? Yeah, that's important, but I also want to know, how are you going to support me if I get this
Mm-hmm.
opportunity? I also think it's of spending time and having open and honest conversations with folks who may be at that level that you want to be at.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Mm.
it's good to talk to diverse sets of folks,
Yep.
but particularly those who look like you, have had life experiences that you may have had, folks who identify in whatever way that you identify, because we know that there are going to be some common experiences that we are going to have no matter where we are and what environment we're in, particularly as we move into leadership roles.
Mm.
And to ask those questions and listen when you hear from the folks. I mean, there's
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, someone asks a question. I'm like, well, this is how my experience has been. And they're like, oh, well, well, no, well, I don't think that would be the case. Well, what the hell
Mm-hmm.
did you ask me for? You, You asked me for my experience, I'm telling you. Um, and then also as we do is understand that you are never fully prepared for whatever that next role is.
That's a good one right
And
there.
and being okay with that. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be prepared. Yeah, you need to make sure that you're prepared for whatever, but you're never fully prepared
Right.
because you can ask questions and you can read materials, but you never know what you're walking into until you are actually in that place.
Right. And that experience is huge. I mean, it's kind of like having a baby. I don't know, because you can have all the classes you want, but until when you go home with that baby, it's like, all right, I've never done this before. It's like a science experiment almost, but it's living and it's breathing and it's a human. And
Yep.
I remember feeling that way. I was like, this is kind of like the hardest science experiment I've ever done
Mhm.
because I don't have a manual for this.
Yep.
And we just gonna have to learn and move forward. And I didn't have a dad. My dad wasn't
Mm.
around, so I don't know how to be a daddy.
Mm.
There's a lot of
You
different
figured it out.
insecurities that I had around that, and still
And think
do.
about it, and folks, and still in leadership, we have those insecurities.
Hmm.
And I think sometimes we question whether or not we have what it takes to serve in that role
All the
where
time.
all the time. And it's like, no, it's if you walk, I do believe if you're walking in a role for the first time and you think that you got all that it takes to do it, and you're not gonna last. I'm not gonna
Somebody
last.
lying.
Yeah, something. Because there will be things you're gonna have to learn that are very specific to their environment. The people are going to be different at every institution, so those are some things I would tell folks to think about.
Well, those are great pieces and a great way to end off. But I have
Yeah.
one more segment.
Okay.
It'll be a quick one, and it's
Okay.
called Hot Take. So,
Okay.
Hot Take is a segment where I ask you a either or, and
Okay.
you just say which one you prefer, and that's it.
Okay.
There's only five.
One. Okay, and it's either or. So it's an A
Yeah.
or B, not a C, D, and E.
No.
Right.
No.
Okay.
Although some people be answering with CD. All right. So, all right. Are you ready for Hot Take?
Yep.
All right. Janet Jackson or Beyonce? Because I was just listening to Control the other day, and man, there was no skips on that project.
Beyonce.
Okay. I I thought that's where we go. All right. Would you rather be too hot or too cold?
Too hot.
The Wood or The Best Man? Movies.
Best man.
Cross Colors or FUBU?
Cross color. Dang, that was way, way back.
Yeah, that's why I asked you about the
Remember
90s.
skids? Remember skids?
Skids?
Uh-huh. They were like the balloon pants, and they had
Oh, yeah.
like the road sign. Yeah.
Yeah. You was wearing
Yep.
that too.
But cross colors.
The Cross Colors had it, man. The Cross Colors. There's all kinds of off-brand shoes. South Tacoma Way is where I had to go to get all the off-brand stuff. I didn't have real Cross Colors. I just had to have the fake ones.
Yeah, because my mom made some skids too. Yeah. Yeah, she
All
did.
right, last one. The Running Man or the Roger Rabbit?
Running Man.
Yeah, Running Man's classic.
Yeah, it's classic. Yeah. I would say everyone can do it, but that's not true.
That's
Um,
true.
yeah, but
I don't got a good Running Man. My Running Man's terrible, but I've never worked on it though. If I worked on it, I'd probably be better at it. I never worked.
see, that's just like everything else, right? But yeah, definitely the Running Man.
Okay. Well, thank you. You just passed Hot Take. That was
Thank
easy.
you.
That was
Well,
easy.
thank
That was
you.
light work. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
So
even though some of them aren't really easy, like the first.
the first one's hard because that's why I ask it, because I'm like, man, because I grew up on Janet, so like if you go back and listen to her discography,
Mhm.
like, and I know she had a couple before Control, but for me Control was the one. It was like, all
Yeah.
right, she's a grown woman now, she's doing her thing.
Yeah.
Rhythm Nation, like, I was like,
Yeah.
these there's no skips on Control. I'm like, all these are hits.
Hmm.
And I just forgot. And we were
Yeah.
on a trip last weekend, taking Ann down to Portland, and I put in the Control album. And I always do here in the office, just on a Thursday or something. I just feeling some kind of way. I just love that album. I don't know. Maybe it's
Well,
my
that's a
childhood.
reminder. I need to go back and listen to it again.
Oh, it
I
takes
mean,
me
she's
back.
just now when I mean she's an awesome performer as well.
Hmm.
It's yeah.
We don't give her flowers enough. I feel
That,
like, and she's
that's
still
I
alive. She's still
yep,
here,
absolutely. No,
and
I agree with you.
we don't give her flowers. So I try to give Janet. I just make sure we give Janet her flowers because she's that woman, man. All right.
Agree.
So, how do people get in touch with you, or how do they find you, or your work, or whatever? You got 30 seconds. Do whatever you need.
Yes, I have work, Instagram, and Twitter, which is I guess called X now. So it's TCCPRES, like TCC Prez.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then can always find me on the TCC website. My contact information for work is there. But my team made me get back on social media, so I TCCPRES, Instagram and Twitter.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on.
Thank
This was
you
just a
for having me. I enjoyed it, and yeah, this is my first
first
podcast.
podcast. You
Yeah,
survived. See, you're
yes, I
good.
did.
Yeah, this was good though. This was really really good,
Thank you.
and
I
thank you for
enjoyed it.
being vulnerable. And I appreciate you being in the space. And I think Tacoma's lucky to have you.
Well,
Tacoma
thank
at
you.
large, not just Tacoma Community College and that staff, but Tacoma at large is lucky to have you. And I know you're going to continue doing great work here. So thank you.
Thank you.
Um,
And I can say one last thing because I
mhm.
wouldn't be a good president if I didn't say so.
Yeah, go ahead.
TCC is a excellent place filled with
Hmm.
excellent people, and that's the main reason why I'm still here.
Hmm.
Um, it's just there's just good folks there, and I'm very, very grateful for everything that each one of them do every day. That makes my life a little easier, but most importantly, makes all the students and communities' lives easier as well. So,
Hmm.
thank you. I've really enjoyed our time today.
Yeah, well, I'll say as an alum, going back, I have gone through some of the new buildings over there that I
Hmm.
drive by every day. Newer, to me they're
Hmm.
new. Um, those are 4-year institution buildings.
Oh yeah,
The
absolutely.
facilities are amazing, and
Ab-
I just am blown away by the facilities. And I think people should do themselves a service and go and walk those buildings,
Absolutely.
even if you're not a part of the academia, or you're not planning to
Read.
go to community college. You might want to go take a class or something, and you'll
Oh
just
yeah.
get to see the quality of the campus. And so,
Hmm.
yeah, it's a
Thank you.
night
And the
and
new
day.
one is coming up right now.
Hmm. Hmm.
New one is
Yeah,
being built right now.
night and day.
Mhm.
Just I was blown away. So anyway, kudos to you and the work you and your staff are doing over there. So really good.
And and I can't take all that credit. There was Pamela Transu, who was the president for 18 years. She really did led a lot of amazing transformation at the
Hmm.
institution. She's still here in the community and is a great supporter as well.
Yeah, just amazing. So thank you. All right. With that, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to wrap up our second Black History Month Reflection Series podcast. Dr. Ivan Harrell has just blessed us today. We've had Dr. Tafana Irvin. We got a couple
Hey,
more. So thank you all for being on, and thank you for being transparent. And hopefully you got to be a fly on the wall and listen to some really good conversation here. And with that, we'll see y'all in the next episode. Peace.